In an incredible turn, the Arab millionaire humiliated the cleaner, but her hidden words revealed. Maria's heart raced as she entered the glitzy penthouse, the sheer luxury of it all dazzling her eyes. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like stars above her head. The polished marble floors seemed to whisper secrets of wealth as she moved through the grand space. She'd never seen a home like this, and for a moment, she felt like a fish out of water. But she squeezed her eyes shut, reminding herself of where she came from and why she needed this job. Her daughter, Sophia, her little sunflower, was counting on her. Those tiny hands pulling on her skirt, begging her to stay home, flooded her mind as she dusted the immaculately arranged decor, but disaster struck. A moment of clumsiness sent a vibrant red drink sloshing onto Khalid's designer suit. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. Khalid's face twisted in anger, his eyes darkening as if clouds had rolled in. The laughter around them evaporated. "What is wrong with you?" he snapped, his voice dripping with contempt. The sneers of his affluent friends hit Maria like sharp blades. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. Her throat tightened with humiliation. In that horrifying moment, her spirit felt like it shattered. She was just trying to make a living, and instead, she felt stripped of her dignity. For hours after that day, Maria's tears fell silently, collecting on the very memories of her husband's laughter, his unwavering support behind her every step. What had once brought her strength now brought bitter anguish. Yet deep down, an ember flickered, a tiny flame ignited by her love for Sophia. As she carelessly scrolled through social media to drown the day's shame away, she stumbled upon a video she had recorded months ago, speaking of her struggles, a glimpse into her life as a single mother. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. To her surprise, the comments picked up, buzzing with sympathy and support. "You go, Maria. We see you." And it felt like the world wrapped its arms around her. Each message lifted her spirit higher. She felt stronger. A shift had begun. Meanwhile, Khalid sat tangled in remorse, nagged by whispers from his friends questioning his behavior. Memories of his family's struggle fought against the arrogance he once wore as armor. As he watched Maria's video being shared more and more, something shifted in him. At a community gathering where Maria was to speak, Khalid found himself drawn into a sea of compassion and admiration for the woman he had so publicly humiliated. As Maria stood at the front, her voice carrying stories of resilience, tears streamed down Khalid's cheeks. But just as hope sparked between them, an unexpected conflict was brewing, threatening to fracture the community that had stood so fervently behind Maria. The stakes were rising, and both Khalid and Maria stood at the edge of a pivotal moment that could redefine their lives forever. Would he find the courage to apologize and embrace humility, or would he let the weight of his pride crush her dreams once again? The gathering buzzed with emotion, making the air thick with unspoken words and shared glances. Maria stood at the front of the room, her heart pounding as she faced an audience that had become her lifeline. Each set of eyes held a spark of encouragement. They had rallied behind her, lifting her spirit when she thought it might break completely. But now, she sensed a tension weaving through the crowd. Whispers flitted between them like leaves caught in a wind. Khalid stood off to the side, struggling with the weight of his actions. The applause that greeted Maria's presence felt foreign to him now. He wanted to step forward, to make amends, but his feet felt like lead. How could he face her after what he'd done? What right did he have to approach a woman who had given so much of herself just to survive? Feeling the audience's gaze shift to him, Khalid clenched his fists, taking a deep breath. He could hear Maria's voice resounding in the hall, sharing the struggles she had faced as a single mother, the dreams she held onto through adversity. He was mesmerized by her courage, even as his shame grew heavier. Suddenly, amidst the invasive whispering, one voice broke through. "Khalid, are you going to apologize? She deserves that." A murmur of agreement followed, and every pair of eyes turned toward him with expectation. Maria's heart raced at the mention of his name. Gratitude swelled within her. She felt the roots of a new strength taking hold, sprouting right where the soil felt barren. Yet, a flicker of uncertainty stirred in her chest. She had survived alone for so long. Was she ready to let someone in, especially someone who had hurt her so deeply? But Khalid nodded, still battling with his internal demons. Gathering his resolve, he stepped forward, his voice trembling with sincerity. Maria, I'm so sorry for my behavior. I let my arrogance blind me to your truth. His eyes searched hers, a silent plea for understanding. I humiliated you, and I can't take that back. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see your strength and your bravery, and I admire you for it. The room filled with a charged silence as Maria's breath caught. She hadn't expected this. A part of her wanted to lash out, to remind him of the pain he'd caused. But another part, a deeper part, recognized the heartfelt sincerity in his apology. Thank you, she managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. That means a lot, Khalid. The audience erupted in supportive cheers, but Maria remained lost in thought. What next? Could she allow this door to open, knowing that the past still loomed behind it? As they exchanged a charged glance, something new flickered in the air between them, a fragile bond that could either blossom or break. But just then, a loud bang on the front door disrupted the moment. Gasps filled the room, and the atmosphere shifted dramatically as a group of protesters burst inside, brandishing signs that read, "Justice for Workers." The crowd was instantly divided. Would Khalid and Maria's moment of connection be overshadowed by this new chaos? Or could it be the spark that propelled them toward a new shared purpose? Maria's heart raced again, but this time it was fueled by determination. She knew she had to take a stand not just for herself, but for all the others like her. Khalid met her gaze, and for the first time, he understood the fight that lay before them. Were they ready to unite against the storm brewing from outside? The stakes had just become higher, demanding courage neither had fully embraced before. Would they find their voices together, or would fear silence them once again? Amidst the chaos, the air thrummed with tension. The protesters advanced, their demands echoing through the hall like a drumbeat of justice. Each sign was a battle cry, a challenge to the status quo, and the energy in the room shifted once again this time. It was charged with urgency. Maria felt the heat of the moment close around her. She stepped forward instinctively, her heart urging her to act. "We can't stay silent," she shouted, her voice ringing out over the uproar. "We're not just individuals, we're a community." Her words sliced through the noise, igniting a spark in the crowd. It was a reminder that they were all connected by shared struggles and triumphs. Khalid watched her, awe swirling within him. For the first time, she wasn't just the woman he had wronged, she was a leader. An unexpected wave of strength surged through him, a call to action he had never anticipated. "Maria's right," he called out, his voice rising above the crowd. "We all face challenges. Today, we must stand together." The protesters nodded, encouraged by their words, and a ripple of solidarity rolled through the audience. Now was the moment to shift the narrative, to turn past pain into collective strength. Maria and Khalid were no longer just individuals grappling with their own shadows. They were becoming a force. The crowd started to chant slogans for justice. Maria felt her voice grow stronger, bolstered by the unity around her. "They want to silence us, but we will rise. For every worker treated unfairly, for every mother struggling to provide, for every heart that has been broken, we will be heard." Khalid stepped beside her, and the newfound strength between them felt electric. In that moment, they weren't just two opposing sides of a conflict. They were allies in a shared battle, pain transforming into purpose. Together, they faced the thrumming energy of hope, but with hope came fear. Khalid sensed hesitation in himself. The past still held heavy, and each step forward felt like a dance on a tightrope. What if we fail? His whispered doubt threatened to unravel him. Maria turned to him, catching the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. What if we don't? We owe it to ourselves, to all of us, to try. Her words rang true, a powerful truth cutting through the uncertainty. They had endured so much. What was one more step into the unknown? Then, the tension erupted as a protest leader marched to the front, demanding to speak. He was a fierce advocate, his voice unyielding and passionate. "We're here to demand justice. No longer will we let others silence our voices. The crowd cheered, the energy becoming more palpable. Just as Khalid felt his resolve solidifying, a sense of dread washed over him. What if they were met with resistance? What if their unity was met with aggression? He looked at Maria, who stood firm, undeterred by the rising stakes. Her gaze was fierce, illuminated by a fire he stoked with his apology. In that heartbeat, he understood that their fight was not just theirs anymore. It was a shared battle against a larger injustice. They needed to focus on the cause that had suddenly fused them together, carving out an opportunity for healing that they had both yearned for. As they took a step forward, side by side, a part of Maria still questioned the consequences of this united front. Would they not just fight for justice, but perhaps also the chance to rebuild trust, even friendship? The crowd surged around them, ready to march. The atmosphere was a mix of anticipation and fear, a complex web of emotions threatening to tighten. As Khalid and Maria exchanged one more glance, filled with unspoken promises, they both realized the journey ahead might not just change them, but everyone who stood with them. What lay ahead? Would they find the strength to lead this charge together? Or would the dark clouds from the past cast a shadow over the uncertain path they were about to tread? The crowd surged forward, and with each step, Maria felt the weight of their hopes pressing against her. Khalid moved beside her, their hearts racing in sync, fueled by the collective passion enveloping them. As they reached the front of the hall, the sounds of chants and righteous fury swirled around like a storm. Justice! Justice! The crowd cried, their voices a thunderous chorus. Maria raised her hands, quieting the uproar, her face illuminated by determination. We're standing here today not just for ourselves, but for everyone who has been overlooked, for those who have been pushed aside and ignored. Her voice cut through the air like a knife, sharp and undeniable. Khalid watched her, realizing how much had changed. There was a fire in her that ignited something deep within him, a realization that they were two fronts on the same battlefield. We must hold on to this moment, he declared, amplifying her words. It's time for change. No more silence. We need to make them hear our voice. A resolve washed over the crowd, tightening their collective grip on justice. Yet, behind that fervor, Khalid couldn't shake the creeping doubt that clawed at him. What if they faced an unforgiving response? The images of the past haunted him like restless spirits, clawing at his confidence. As if sensing his turmoil, Maria turned to Khalid, her expression unwavering. We can't back down now. They're counting on us. Her words lingered, firm and grounded, pulling him from the depths of his worry. He nodded, the warmth of her belief igniting a spark in him. They faced a formidable challenge ahead, but at that moment, as they stood shoulder to shoulder, they appeared almost invincible. The protest leader, a man with a booming voice and a fierce presence, stepped forward again, rallying the crowd. They want us to be afraid, to feel powerless. But we are not powerless. We have the strength of our community, our families, our friends behind us. The cheers grew louder, vibrating through Khalid's bones, but uncertainty hung in the air like a thick fog. Not everyone welcomed their uprising. Khalid caught sight of a group of men who watched from the sidelines. Their expressions hardened. A knot twisted in his stomach at the realization that not everyone shared their vision for change. Stay focused, Maria whispered, sensing his distraction. We need to direct this energy. We're the ones who can turn this tide. He took a deep breath, searching her eyes for reassurance. Together, they reached for the microphone. The crowd hushed, anticipation thick enough to cut. Let us prove to them, Maria began, that we are stronger together, that our voices are impossible to ignore. As she spoke, Khalid felt his heart quicken, the fear intermingling with exhilaration. This was their moment. This was their chance to rewrite the future. Then, from the back, a voice boomed filled with aggression and disdain. You really think you can challenge us? You're nothing but a bunch of weaklings. The crowd froze, tension slicing through the air like a whip. Khalid felt Maria stiffen beside him. The challenge hung like a storm cloud, threatening to burst. But Maria's response came swift and fierce. We will not be backed down. We are a community. We will not go quietly into the night. As the crowd roared back in support, Khalid realized the storm wasn't just outside, it was inside too. This was the moment that could shift everything. Would they succumb to that voice of hatred, Or would they seize this moment and rise above? As a palpable tension wrapped around them, Khalid's pulse raced, eager yet anxious for what would unfold next. Khalid's heart pounded like a drum in his chest, the air thick with tension. He scanned the crowd, faces illuminated by the fervor of the moment, and yet shadows lurked among them, the skeptics, the naysayers. He could feel the divide. The echo of that aggressive voice lingered, a ghost threatening to derail the momentum they had built. Maria turned, her eyes blazing with defiance, and for a moment, he forgot the threat lurking beyond the crowd. It was her spirit that captivated him, her resilience like a beacon in the dark. "We can do this," she shouted, her voice breaking through the heaviness. Her passion trickled into the hearts of those around them, bubbling over into chants that filled the air once more. "Justice! Justice!" The crowd picked up the rhythm, as if Maria's fire spread like wildfire. Khalid barely noticed the men at the back anymore. All he could see was the unity forming before him, a tapestry woven from countless dreams, each thread interlocking with another. But then came the first shift in the crowd. A few voices from the back began to assert themselves, murmuring dissent. "You really think your words can make a difference?" One jeered, an attempt to undermine the collective courage. The disruption rippled through, a wave of unease slapping against their building resolve. Khalid felt the knot return to his stomach, while rising at the thought of retreat. He could sense the fear creeping in but steeled himself, holding on to Maria's unwavering gaze. "We have to show them what we stand for," he breathed, a quiet urgency swirling in him. "Together," she called out, lifting her voice higher. "We will create change, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come. Our fight is for every mother who lost hope, every child deprived of their dreams." She stepped forward, the glimmer in her eyes like a lighthouse guiding a ship home. The noise behind them transformed no longer whispers of doubt, but the roar of support. Khalid felt his pulse steady, finding courage in the energy of the collective. He stepped up next to Maria, locking eyes with her, a silent pact forming between them. "Do you hear that?" He pitched in. "Every time they try to silence us, we will grow louder. They can mock us, but they can never take our power away." The echo of his words caught fire among the crowd, lifting spirits like a hot air balloon soaring into the sky. But just as the tide seemed to shift towards hope, a loud crash shattered the moment. A nearby storefront window shattered. Khalid turned sharply toward the sound, his heart sinking. Panic erupted, people screamed and scattered. The group of men, emboldened by chaos, surged forward. "Cowards! This isn't what you want," one shouted, waving an object sinisterly. Khalid looked at Maria, their connection undeterred by the encroaching chaos. "What now?" he asked, barely above a whisper. She inhaled deeply, a spark of determination igniting in her. "We fight back with our voices. We stand firm." But Khalid could see the tremor in her stance, a flicker of fear beneath her bravado. As the mob shouted threats, Khalid knew the next few moments would define them. Would they remain steadfast or retreat into silence, drowned out by the chaos? The crowd, like a tide, shifted back, but Khalid felt the ropes of courage tightening around him. "We need to keep going," he yelled, raising his voice. "This is not the end, it's only the beginning." With a deep breath, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever storm awaited them, heart hammering in sync with the passions of those behind him. But at that moment, one of the men stepped into the light, and Khalid squinted, recognizing the face from somewhere. Whispers of disbelief rippled through him as he pondered the connections. Who were they really challenging? And then, from the depths of the crowd, a voice broke through. "I know you." It was stronger. It was familiar. All eyes turned to the source, and as the suspense thickened, Khalid felt the air grow heavy. This was about to take a turn he never expected. Khalid squinted against the harsh glare of the streetlights, his heart racing as he scanned the crowd, searching for the owner of that voice. The murmurs became louder, merging with the sounds of chaos around them. The man who had stepped forward, now illuminated by the flickering lights, held an intense gaze, as if daring Khalid to respond. "I know you," the man shouted again, voice dripping with mockery. He seemed to relish the attention. "Khalid, right? The dreamer, the poet. What do you think you can do here? Inspire these fools?" Khalid felt shame wash over him, a burning sensation creeping up his cheeks. He recognized him now, an old acquaintance from the neighborhood, someone who had always questioned his dreams, someone who thrived in cynicism. Memories of taunts and laughter flooded back, but there was no time for nostalgia. He had a crowd to rally. "Enough," Khalid shouted, forcing his voice to overcome the rising tide of confusion. "You have no idea what we are capable of. We're not here to be humiliated. We're here to fight for our future." The crowd hesitated, then erupted again, fueled by Khalid's fervor. "Fight! Fight!" they cried, emboldened by the underlying tension. Maria stepped closer to Khalid, a determined look in her eyes. "Don't let him get to you. You're better than that," she reminded him softly. He nodded, feeling the warmth of her support steadier him against the rising tide of anger and fear. But then, just as quickly as the crowd had surged, an ominous sense of dread filled the air. The man smirked, stepping farther into the light, showcasing a side of arrogance that made Khalid's blood boil. "You think your voices will change anything? Look around you." Suddenly, more windows shattered. More jeers followed, accompanied by the harsh sound of someone throwing a brick. The crowd flinched, and a sense of panic began to spread like wildfire. Khalid steeled himself, eyes darting around, searching for leadership in a moment that felt void of direction. He knew fear could derail them in seconds if he didn't act. "This isn't just about us. It's about everyone who feels ignored," he yelled, reaching for the hearts of those listening. "People are tired of being silenced, unheard. Their lives matter, our voices matter. Together, we can break these chains." With each word, he felt a connection, a commitment to the fight igniting in the crowd. Murmurs of agreement started to ripple through again, the force of belief building. But the man in front wasn't finished. He swaggered forward, his confidence a mask for the insecurities that were boiling beneath. "And what do you plan to do? Stand there with your flowery words? You can't change the world by shouting." Khalid felt his heart race faster. The crowd needed a plan, a cause. He took a deep breath, channeling his nerves into something tangible. "We won't just shout. We will stand firm and we will act. We'll use our words and our hearts, and no one can take that from us." As the crowd rallied again, the initial panic slowly transformed into something fierce. Khalid sensed the tide turning, the collective energy shifting as they began to organize themselves. Maria stood beside him, eyes shining bright with determination. "Then let us show him," she shouted, her voice piercing through the chaos. "We're not just a crowd, we're a movement. This is our moment." The break through the tension felt electric, and for the first time that night, Khalid felt hope bloom within him. But in that crucial moment of rediscovering their strength, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were still on the precipice of disaster. As the men grew restless and the threats intensified, Khalid knew the next moments could change everything. How much longer could they withstand the pressure? Would they hold the line when everything seemed poised to break? And just then, as the crowd cheered, the man smirked. "You have no idea what you've just invited." Khalid's stomach twisted as the air grew thick with uncertainty. What came next could either ignite their fight or extinguish it forever. He had to find a way to lead them through, but where would that path take them? Khalid's pulse quickened as he saw the man's smirk deepen, a dark promise lingering in the air. He caught glimpses of tension in the crowd, fear rippling like a current. They were ready to charge into battle, but battle meant more than just words. It could mean violence, and he wasn't sure they were truly prepared for that. "Listen to me," Khalid shouted, his voice ringing out, desperate to anchor the souls around him. "We're not just here to be targets for ridicule. This is our chance to show them that silence is not an option, that we are not afraid." For a heartbeat, he saw the flicker of doubt in the eyes of the crowd. Some grasped their partner's hands tighter, while others turned to glance back at the shattering glass, memories of past conflicts resurfacing. Yet, it was the spark of defiance that intrigued him. The flame was still there. "Let us not just shout," Khalid urged, heart swelling with conviction. "Let us show them our unity. Our strength lies in our togetherness. If we arm ourselves with our voices, our passion, we can rise above this." Maria squeezed his hand. "They can't silence us if we refuse to be," she added, her voice joining him, intertwining their resolve, pouring light into the shadows. But the man retreating back a step had stirred something in the crowd, a raw, unsettling energy. He lifted his arms, as if beckoning the chaos to grow. What will you do then, Khalid? Write songs about your dreams while we're out fighting for our lives. The hostility darkened more than the night. It painted it in shades of despair. Khalid moved closer, his voice steady. We will be loud, not with violence, but with purpose. We're not asking for permission. Our voices carry weight, and they will be heard. Suddenly, a roar echoed from behind them. More people were arriving, a mix of hesitant souls and faces adorned with determination, squeezing into the fray. Every chant, every cheer began to weave itself into a tapestry of hope. Khalid could sense the fear easing off their shoulders, replaced by a thrumming exhilaration. But from the darkness, frustration simmered too. The man had gathered his friends, a group larger than Khalid's. What if you fail? He yelled, fearlessly stepping into the light. What then? Another chapter in the book of losers? Khalid's mind raced, grappling for the right words. And where does that leave you? He shot back, fire roaring within him. What happens when the dust settles and the roar of conflict quiets? What will you have to show for it? A fear-based existence? Silence blanketed the street for a moment, and the crowd held its breath, caught in the web of tension. Overhead, the stars twinkled above bright. Indifferent witnesses to the pulse of humanity below, he felt the atmosphere shift, shifting from fear to something more solid. We are fighting not just for ourselves, for those who can't speak, for every person who has lived through the shadows of shame. This is our time to break through. The man laughed, short and bitter. You think words can build bridges? They can just as easily crumble them. Khalid lifted his chin, folding Maria's hand tighter in his. The moment felt pregnant with the weight of anticipation. Then let's gather our words and build something stronger than your walls, something resilient and beautiful. Together. The crowd erupted once more, voices rising, bravely pushing back against the swelling storm. Khalid could see it, the tiny flicker of change started to spread, a wildfire of belief igniting hearts. But just as the cheers crescendoed, a siren wailed in the distance, slicing through the night air, an ominous reminder of the stakes. What would they do when faced with confrontation, when the Real challenge arrived? Khalid's throat tightened as dread pooled in his stomach. It was all or nothing, and in that intense moment, he realized they were teetering on the edge between hope and chaos, caught in a battle where nothing could truly prepare them for what lay ahead. Would they stand as one, or would they fracture beneath the enormity of it all? As the sirens grew louder, Khalid's heart raced, and he prepared to face whatever storm was coming their way. Khalid's heart thundered as the sirens grew, cutting through the night like a knife. He looked around at the faces of those gathered, illuminated by the flickering streetlights. Some appeared resolved, but others were expressions of doubt, fear crawling back into their eyes like shadows. Stay strong, he shouted, trying to drown out the imminent chaos. We come together to be heard. We stand together or we fall apart. The crowd responded with shouts and cheers, the energy pulsing like electricity. Khalid felt emboldened, but the unsettling feeling in his gut didn't dissipate. He scanned the streets, watching as figures emerged from the shadows, figures that looked ready for a skirmish. Is this what you wanted? The man's voice sliced through the tension again, his smirk reappearing as he stepped forward. You've drawn attention now. They're coming for you. Good. Khalid yelled back, his temper flaring. Let them come. If they want to fight, they'll get a fight. But it won't just be fists. It will be our voices that drown out the sirens. As he spoke, he saw Maria stepping forward, her eyes fierce and unwavering. This is not just about us, she called out, her voice rising above the din. It's about every soul who has been silenced for too long. We're here for our children, for our families, the right to be who we are. The crowd cheered again, and Khalid felt the warmth of hope spread through them. Yet, the more he rallied, the closer the shadows loomed. The figures approached, a chaotic ensemble of anger and indifference, their faces obscured by night, but their intentions all too clear. Enough of this rabbit hole nonsense. The man called out. You think they care for your words? They care about power. You think your voices mean anything? Let us see how brave you are when it really counts. Khalid felt his breath quicken, a mixture of urgency and palpable fear racing through him. He turned to the crowd, feeling as if every heartbeat echoed a collective uncertainty. What do we want? He shouted, his voice straining against the tension. Justice. They roared together. Hope, will we back down? He pressed. No. The response was stronger, a roaring tide ready to clash with the looming threat. It was right then that the sirens reached a deafening crescendo, blaring close now, signaling the arrival of more than just looming wind. That a line of officers emerged, poised and prepared. Khalid's pulse quickened anew. He hadn't anticipated their arrival so soon. The crowd stirred uneasily, uncertainty rippling like a sudden chill. What is the plan, Khalid? Maria whispered, her grip tightening around his wrist. Do we keep standing here? He felt the stakes rising, the reality of confrontation settling heavily like a cloak. Behind him, he saw some people beginning to waver. We've come too far to turn back now. We fight with our voices and our hearts. We show them who we are. Exactly, Maria replied fiercely, her spirit igniting a fire within him. If it comes to it, we stand together, not just as individuals, but as a united force. Yet something nagged at him. As he faced the officers, clad in uniforms that screamed authority and control, Khalid remembered the dark promises lurking in the man's words. Would the hope they shared crumble under the weight of a reality they were unprepared for? But at that moment, he felt a shift. In the eyes of the crowd, defiance sparked anew, stronger than before. They were ready, not for violence, but for the power of their collective voice. And as the first officer stepped forward, Khalid prepared himself for a new onslaught of challenges, knowing now that the real fight was just beginning. The tension hung like a thick fog. How far were they willing to go? Would their courage hold strong under the glaring lights of authority? Khalid clenched his jaw, knowing that for every shred of courage, there rested a weight of uncertainty. What would happen in the moment of truth? The air of anticipation buzzed as they stood on the brink of confrontation. Khalid took a deep breath, trying to anchor himself amidst the rising tide of anxiety. The first officer stepped forward with a commanding presence, scanning the crowd, searching for the leader of this apparent uprising. Khalid's heart raced, but he refused to take a step back. He felt the energy of those beside him, every person tethered by their shared experiences and struggles. Listen to me, Khalid shouted, raising his voice above the sirens and the murmurs. We will not be intimidated. We stand for justice, for our rights. He could see the flickering lights of their phones illuminating faces, faces that echoed his message, faces that held stories of fight and survival. Maria squeezed his wrist tighter as another officer joined the first, creating a wall of authority. Khalid, they might not understand our message, she hissed, urgency lacing her voice. We need to find a way to make them listen, without more violence. Then we give them our truth, he replied, resolve hardening his voice. Today is not just a stand. It's a transformation. We are not just voices in the night, we are a chorus demanding to be heard. As the crowd swelled with renewed vigor at his words, Khalid noticed the smirk on the man from earlier fade into something darker, like a cloud eclipsing the dim light. With a deep breath, he pulled himself onto a nearby bench so that everyone could see him, arms raised high. Together, we will make them uncomfortable. Together, we will ensure our voices carry beyond this night. The officers exchanged glances, confusion flickering over their faces as one began to step closer. You need to disperse, the officer, a woman with sharp eyes, said firmly. This is an unlawful gathering. Unlawful? Khalid echoed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. Do our rights become unlawful the moment we band together? Is standing for justice now a crime? Look around. This is not just a gathering. This is our lives, the lives you are sworn to protect. Applause broke out amidst the crowd. They were feeling the thrill of power and determination. Khalid could not ignore the urgency of the moment, sensing the critical choice before him. On one hand, there was safety, perhaps the crowd would dissipate quietly if they backed down. On the other, there was something grander, a call to action, igniting flames in hearts long dimmed by fear. The officer took a step forward, visibly shaken yet steadfast, prepared to tackle whatever came next. You don't have to choose a path of confrontation. We can talk about this. Khalid felt a rush of adrenaline surge through him. Talk. You think our lives can be negotiated like some flimsy agreement? We want action. Change. It's time for you to hear us, to carry our voices out into the world. Each word was charged with raw emotion. As he saw some turn their heads towards the officer, whispering their stories, the pain, the loss, the hope. And then came a shout from the back of the crowd, a young woman's voice soaring above. "We are not invisible. We are here. Hear us." The emotional fabric of the gathering collapsed into a collective shout. Khalid's chest swelled, feeling an overwhelming sense of unity, but doubt tugged persistently at his mind. Would that voice get through the layers of authority? Would they listen, or would this just end in chaos? As the two sides stood locked in an intense battle of wills, Khalid's gaze was drawn to the lines of hopeful faces illuminated by the clash of lights. And deep down, he knew this was the tipping point. Would they find common ground in their humanity, or would they be forced into a confrontation they desperately wished to avoid? As he prepared himself for the next moment, the weight of uncertainty pressed on him. The air crackled around them, charged with potential, and just as the crowd erupted into cheers, the ground beneath shifted again. Behind the officers, more figures emerged, tensions heightened, lights flashed as if a storm were about to break. Khalid's heart sank. What next? Would the voices of the people be strong enough to withstand the weight of authority, bearing down on them? And then, through the chaos, he caught Maria's eye. "Together, we rise or we fall," she whispered fiercely, a promise in her gaze that sent a wave of strength through him. How far could they push the limits of their power? As the first clash of words began, they all stood on the edge of something monumental, as the skies darkened both outside and within their hearts. Khalid faced the officers, his heart pounding with equal parts fear and hope. The air around them crackled, charged with a tension that felt thick enough to slice. He felt Maria's presence beside him, unwavering, a lifeline holding him steady amidst the storm brewing within. Together, he shouted, "We stand united for justice, for every single worker who feels disregarded, for every voice that has been muted too long." The crowd echoed his sentiment with a fervor that roared like thunder. The lead officer, her eyes narrowed, stepped forward. "You need to disperse. This is an unlawful assembly." The words came out sharp, crisp, like a frozen bite in the air. Khalid felt his throat tighten. "Unlawful?" he echoed, disgust tinting his voice. "You think our fight for dignity and respect is unlawful? Look at these people. We aren't just a crowd. We are a community. We are human." The officer hesitated, caught in the strength of his words. The crowd simmered with energy, and whispers began to ripple through the throng, stories of struggles, voices rising to offer testimony against the shadows of oppression. "I see you." Another voice cried from the back, a woman standing tall. "We are here, and we want to go away." Khalid's heart swelled as he locked eyes with Maria. The determination in her expression was a blazing fire against the dark backdrop of doubt and fear. Together, against a system that had ignored them for too long, they were making themselves seen. The officers exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their stoic facade. "Let us talk," the woman officer proposed, her voice softening slightly. "We can start over. You don't need to make this worse." "Make this worse?" Khalid let bitterness seep into his voice. "It already feels pretty bad. We are not asking for simply a conversation. We demand action. Action that transforms understanding, not just words that disappear into the void. Words build bridges. They lay foundation and truth." The crowd surged forward, fueled by his words. "Action! Action!" They shouted in a rhythmic chant, empowered by the sense of solidarity growing stronger by the second. Seeing the shift, Khalid continued, "It's not just about us with our voices right now. It's about the unseen faces, the unheard cries of mothers struggling, families aching under the weight of indifference. This is our moment." The officers, faced with the magnitude of the crowd's united passion, stepped back slightly. Khalid saw hesitation on their faces. "Do you hear us? Do you see us for who we are?" he called, his voice unwavering. The air was thick with expectation to amplify his words. Maria took a step forward, feeling the spirit of the crowd flow through her. "We are tired. Tired of being invisible. We deserve to matter. We deserve to be seen." With those words, she raised her fist, a simple but powerful gesture. The sight of her standing tall ignited a spark among the people. A wave of unity surged through the crowd, amplifying their hope. Khalid felt a surge of warmth around them, real possibility. But then, the tension simmered back, the officer stepping forward again, looking determined, yet visibly shaken. This can't end in violence. We can agree to work together, but you have to lower your voices. Lower our voices? Khalid barked, anger flaring again. You want us silent. You want us compliant. But that is not going to happen. We are raising our voices for freedom, for respect. If that frightens you, then so be it. But we will not back down. The murmurs transformed into a tide wave of shouting. At that moment, chaos erupted, a movement that showcased their collective power. They were no longer just bystanders, but players in a transformative saga. Khalid turned to Maria, who beamed back at him, confidence shining through her eyes. They need to see our resolve. We can step back. Suddenly, a roar exploded from the crowd. Together, we rise. The voices intertwined into a unified chant, echoing across the street. Khalid and Maria stood shoulder to shoulder, unwavering. Together, we demand our rights. We are the future. Their cries resonated in the night sky, the universe vibrating with the energy of people rising for a cause greater than themselves. From the flanks, moments passed. Strangers became allies, promises ignited, connections formed. Khalid felt the shift of energy, the voices uplifted, powerful enough to break barriers. The officers wavered. Khalid realized something profound. They weren't just fighting for justice. They were forging a new community, bound by shared struggles and triumphs. This moment reshaped them, carving out a space where hope was more than a dream. And then, unexpected laughter broke through the haunting voice from earlier, wavering now. You really think you can change anything? The man spat. Khalid wasn't deterred. Watch us, he shouted back, his heart racing. This is just the beginning. Together, we'll build a future brighter than any of us ever dared to dream. He glanced over the crowd, witnessing vulnerability transformed into strength. They had a choice, to stand together, empowered by their collective quest for dignity, or allow the noise around to drown their voices out. The crowd surged again, their spirits intertwining like roots beneath the surface, a family rising determined to reclaim their narrative. Justice, unity, change. They roared, the passion igniting fervor that lingered in the air like a sweet promise of dawn. In that moment, Khalid felt embedded in something larger, a newfound belief that they could rise above. Together they dared to dream, to fight, and maybe, just maybe, they could ignite a wave of change that spiraled far beyond this confrontation. And as the sirens dulled into a haunting memory, he knew their journey was just beginning, painted across a canvas begging for transformation, not just for them, but for those who stood ready to join the fight. This was their moment, and they wouldn't let it slip away. Stand firm, he reminded himself. Stand together. The tapestry he dared to dream was within grasp. Now, they just had to reach out, to find each other amidst the chaos and rise. As every heartbeat echoed hope, the possibilities unfurled like the stars above, illuminating a path filled with promise. Would this be the moment that forged a better tomorrow? Khalid held tight to the belief that yes, they could. Yes, they would. And in that rhythm of their hearts, they collectively stepped into the light, ready to face whatever storm came. Don't wait, not even one more second, to share this journey with at least 5 friends who need this inspiration. You need to subscribe immediately to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and comment your reactions about this transformative moment. This is the moment to show your support.